Have you ever wondered what really goes on behind the scenes? When major world powers negotiate, or how military decisions, things happening seemingly thousands of miles away, ultimately shape everything from global oil prices to the stability of your everyday life. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging headfirst into a complex geopolitical puzzle, the evolving dynamics of the Middle East and the United States' ever-shifting yet crucial role within it. Our mission today, really, is to unpack some recent critical intelligence. We'll start at the Iran update from the Institute for the Study of War, ISW, which gives us some fascinating insights into Tehran's strategic calculus. Then, we'll shift our focus to a comprehensive report on U.S. defense posture from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS. That one lays out America's options in this, well, let's face it, volatile region. Our goal, to extract the most crucial nuggets of knowledge, connect the dots between these high-stakes geopolitical chess moves and their real-world implications, and importantly, help you, our listener, quickly get well-informed on a region that, frankly, impacts us all. Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a lot of fascinating layers to peel back today.
Absolutely. And when we talk about these layers, Iran is undeniably where we have to start. What's particularly striking from the ISW's analysis is how Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, views the current nuclear negotiations with the United States. It's not just about uranium enrichment, you see. It's a profound strategic maneuver aimed at preserving the stability of his entire regime. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains why they're so intensely focused on avoiding what they term a two-front war. That's their nightmare scenario, right? Combining external military threats with severe internal unrest. These negotiations for them are a critical lever. They want to alleviate domestic economic pressures and prevent foreign intervention.
So it really boils down to regime survival, doesn't it? The sources indicate Khamenei himself has cautioned against excessive optimism and pessimism regarding these talks, which speaks volumes, I think, about his deep-seated distrust of the U.S. And that's especially poignant given, the previous Trump administration's withdrawal from the JCPOA, the nuclear deal, back in 2018. We know discussions between the U.S. and Iran have quietly begun again in Muscat, Oman, and the U.S. reportedly intended to bring up Iran's massive support for the axis of resistance. Yet, perhaps predictably, that critical topic didn't even make it onto the agenda for the initial talks back on April 12th. What does that tell us?
It tells us Iran is playing a very deliberate long game. Definitely. Their active information operations, they aim to obfuscate their leadership role in this axis of resistance. It's likely setting the stage for future negotiations where they can claim some distance, from their proxies' actions. It's a classic deflection strategy, really. Avoid accountability for the destabilization this network causes across the whole region. And on the nuclear front itself, the numbers are stark. Iran currently possesses 274.8 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. Now, to put that in perspective for you, that's enough material, if they enrich it further, to produce approximately 6 nuclear weapons.
6?
Yeah. This isn't just a number. It's a stark indicator of the strategic leverage they hold. And it shows why these negotiations are so incredibly high stakes. Adding to that, Iran has repeatedly made it clear their advanced missile and drone programs, completely off the table for negotiation. They view these as their primary deterrents, non-negotiable tools to achieve their strategic objectives.
That paints a very clear and, somewhat alarming picture of Iran's strategic calculations, their priorities. But Iran isn't operating in a vacuum, right? We also see this broader geopolitical chessboard involving the axis of resistance itself. This isn't some loose affiliation. It's Iran's meticulously cultivated transnational coalition, state, semi-state, and non-state actors. Think Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, the Popular Mobilization Forces in Iraq. They've been building this network since 1979, and their shared grand strategic objectives are pretty audacious. Systematically erode U.S. influence across the Middle East, and ultimately their stated goal is to destroy Israel.
And here's where the ISW update delivers something really quite striking, a jaw-dropping development, you could say. Iran, a Shiite power, is reportedly cooperating with Sunni extremist groups, including ISIS in Syria.
Wait, ISIS? Really?
Yes. Now, this isn't some ideological shift or, newfound camaraderie. Not at all. It's pure, cynical strategic opportunism. After the collapse of their own traditional smuggling networks in Syria, Iran is now leveraging these groups. Why? To destabilize the Syrian transitional government, inflame sectarian tensions, and basically re-entrench themselves in the region. It's a calculated move to benefit from chaos. Pure and simple.
We're also seeing new localized anti-SDF formations emerging in the Hausa province. Remember, the SDF are the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces. Groups like the Free Hasaka Forces, they're actively threatening pro-SDF tribal leaders, which further undermines stability in U.S.-backed efforts there.
Okay, so with Iran and its proxies actively reshaping the regional landscape, the crucial question becomes, what other global powers are making moves on this same chessboard? Because it's not just Iran. We're seeing this dance of influence. Other major global players challenging the established order. Russia, for instance. They've significantly expanded their military posture in the Middle East. They're capitalizing on battlefield successes in Syria to revive those, great power ambitions. They've solidified and revitalized key bases like Haimim Air Base in Syria. That's a crucial projection point for their power. And they've deployed advanced surface-to-air missile systems like the S-400 and even the S-500, basically creating an anti-access bubble in the eastern Mediterranean.
Right, and China is following a similar playbook, though maybe with a slightly different emphasis. Their military footprint is definitely expanding, not just in Djibouti.
Djibouti, yeah, we hear a lot about that.
That's exactly. Where they built a new naval pier that can support aircraft carriers, plus a helicopter and UAV base with extensive housing, but also in places like Karachi, Pakistan. They've established a naval presence there, even with a submarine. And the CSIS report highlighted a particularly telling detail. China actually attempted to build a military installation at Khalifa Port in the UAE.
In the UAE?
Yeah. It was only temporarily halted by concerted U.S. diplomatic efforts. This clearly demonstrates how every move has a countermove on this global board. These powers are actively challenging the existing order and, frankly, testing America's resolve.
Okay, so with these high-level strategic maneuvers unfolding, the crucial question becomes, how does this all manifest on the ground? And at sea, where are the actual flashpoints where these grand strategies collide? Regional instability is unfortunately a constant. In Syria, for example, we saw the recent dissolution of the 8th Brigade. They surrendered their weapons under pressure from the Syrian transitional government, a direct move to reduce their influence and reassert centralized control.
And in Yemen, the situation remains incredibly volatile. Just look at the reports. There's talk of a potential ground offensive against the Houthis by anti-Houthi Yemeni factions, reportedly advised by U.S. private security contractors. Meanwhile, CEACOM, the U.S. Central Command, has been active, conducting airstrikes, targeting key Houthi infrastructure and supply lines. This includes strategic spots like Cameron Island, a vital logistical hub for them, also the Al-Jaf Junction, critical for moving forces, and the Mass military base. That base was a Yemeni armed forces stronghold, now used by the Houthis as a key operations center, and even an income source, including from the Salt Gold Extraction Company located there.
Gold extraction, so they're funding themselves that way too.
Part of it, yes. These strikes are designed to disrupt their capabilities and, importantly, their revenue streams.
Shifting over to Jordan. Just recently, authorities there arrested 16 individuals linked to the Muslim Brotherhood. They were reportedly planning rocket and drone attacks, apparently trained and financed in Lebanon. Now, the report says no direct link to Iran was found in this specific incident, but it's worth noting Iran has increasingly prioritized Jordan in its regional strategy lately, and there have been previous Iranian-led attempts to smuggle weapons to the West Bank through Jordan. So it underscores this pervasive, evolving nature of the threats.
Absolutely. And then you look at Iraq. We see Iranian-backed Iraqi parliamentarians pushing for investigations. They're targeting Sunni groups, alleging ties to Turkey. This comes amid broader concerns about Turkey's growing regional influence, especially after the fall of the Assad regime in Syria. It just highlights how internal politics within these nations are often, manipulated by external actors and wider regional rivalries. It creates layers of instability beyond simple state-on-state stuff.
And beyond the state and quasi-state actors, we can't forget the persistent threat of terrorism. That remains a major and very dangerous concern. Salafi jihadist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, they're still pervasive across the Middle East. Active in Yemen, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and even extending into North and East Africa. This isn't a problem that has simply gone away, or one we can afford to ignore.
Not at all. And this raises an important question for you, the listener. How do these seemingly localized conflicts and ongoing terrorist activities actually impact global stability, global trade, even if they seem distant? For example, the ISW report gives a pretty sobering warning. It says ISIS could resurge in Syria within just 12 to 24 months without a sustained U.S. presence.
12 to 24 months, that's fat.
It is. And it draws a stark parallel, doesn't it, to the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan and the subsequent resurgence of terrorist activity there. Remember the Taliban appointing Sirajuddin Haqqani, a U.S.-designated terrorist with close al-Qaeda links, as interior minister, plus the continued activity of al-Qaeda and ISIS-K. The ripple effect of weakened counterterrorism efforts is clear and often, global.
And it's not just terrorism directly. The economic impact of regional instability is immense, particularly when you think about those critical choke points for global trade. The Strait of Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the Suez Canal, these aren't just names on a map. They are vital arteries for the free flow of oil, gas, other goods, the stuff that fuels the global economy. We saw the extreme fragility of this system firsthand, didn't we, back in March 2021, when the Ever Given, that massive container ship, ran aground in the Suez. That single incident, blocking just one choke point, disrupted global supply chains. The estimate was it cost something like $9.6 billion per day.
Exactly. And while the United States is largely energy independent now, which is a significant shift, its key allies and partners, think Japan, India, South Korea, many EU countries, they're still heavily reliant on Middle East oil and gas imports. So any major disruption through those choke points, it hits the global economy hard, and by direct extension, it hits our own economy too. The security of these routes is genuinely a global interest, not just a regional one. Instability there affects the price of everything from gasoline to the goods in your local store.
Okay, so this brings us right to the core of America's strategic dilemma in the region. What kind of U.S. force posture is most effective in this dynamic, frankly dangerous environment? The CSIS report assesses three main options. First, there's restraint. That essentially means a near total withdrawal, leaving fewer than 5,000 troops, primarily for homeland protection tasks. Second, limited engagement. That's a larger presence, maybe 10,000 to 20,000 troops, mainly to monitor and counter regional state actors and threats. And finally, robust engagement. A sizable force, 40,000 to 50,000 troops, designed for comprehensive deterrence, rapid response, continuous monitoring, and crucially, ensuring freedom of navigation.
And historically, it's worth remembering, U.S. presence in the Middle East has varied quite a bit. During the Cold War, forces were relatively low. The strategic focus was mainly on Europe and Asia. Then the Nixon administration brought in the twin pillar approach, trying to empower key regional allies like Iran, ironically, and Saudi Arabia to maintain a balance. But the Iranian Revolution and the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, that led to a pivotal shift. The Carter Doctrine explicitly declared the Persian Gulf vital to U.S. interests, and the Reagan administration significantly built up that presence, even engaging directly against the Iranian Navy to protect oil exports during the Iran-Iraq War. So America's commitment there has deep roots, and it's consistently adapted to evolving threats over decades.
So, given that history and the current landscape we've just discussed, what does this all mean for America's role today? Let's zoom in on the risks of pulling back too much. The CSIS report is incredibly clear on this. The significant cascading risks of adopting that restraint posture, it would severely weaken the U.S. ability to protect those crucial economic choke points, the free flow of oil vital for global economic stability, as we just said. It carries a high risk of terrorist resurgence, echoing the destabilization and terrorist comeback we saw after the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. That's a big one. And crucially, it could decisively shift the regional balance of power towards competitors like Russia, China, and Iran, making it much, much harder to surge forces back into the region if a major crisis erupts. Essentially, you create a vacuum and hostile actors will fill it.
Right. And even limited engagement, while better than full restraint, also presents serious challenges according to the report. It's a larger presence, sure, but the analysis suggests it still struggles with dealing with major conflicts, like a full-scale war with Iran or a widespread terrorist resurgence. The primary issue flagged here is an over-reliance on partners. Partners who, while valuable, may have, and I quote, limited ability and willingness to act solely in U.S. interests. That could create a significant gap in effective response during critical moments. And while, yes, some policy discussions advocate shifting focus and resources entirely to the Indo-Pacific or Europe, both the ISW and CSIS reports unequivocally highlight the immediate and significant risks that come with such a reduction. They really emphasize the interconnected nature of global security. You can't just isolate regions.
Okay. So, given these stark choices and the dynamic threats we've outlined, the CSIS report actually recommends a balanced approach, something they call selective engagement. This involves maintaining a tailored presence of roughly 20,000 to 30,000 forces.
Exactly. This selective engagement posture, it really emphasizes the idea that a strong, agile, and strategically tailored presence is crucial. Crucial for protecting U.S. vital interests without, overextending. It means maintaining robust deterrence against Iran's expanded missile program and its continued support for proxies. That's key. It also allows for effective countering of the growing military influence of China and Russia in the region, ensuring they don't gain unchecked access or control. This approach retains critical capabilities land, air, maritime, space, cyber needed to achieve objectives. It also provides some flexibility for force redeployment elsewhere if needed. And critically, it avoids the major risks of both restraint, like the power shift, increased competition, terrorism resurgence, trade disruption. And it avoids the over-reliance on allies that limited engagement presents. The report also wisely notes that complementary non-military tools are vital. Things like targeted diplomacy, think Abraham Accords, nuclear non-proliferation efforts, and powerful economic sanctions against hostile entities like Iran and, say, Russian private military companies. It's the whole-of-government approach.
Right. So, to quickly recap our deep dive today, we've peeled back the layers. We've revealed the complex and intertwined threats posed by Iran, Russia, China, and various terrorist groups across the Middle East. We've talked about the critical importance of this region for global trade and energy, highlighting how instability there can directly impact economies worldwide, including our own. And we've explored the strategic considerations behind U.S. military presence, focusing on how this selective engagement posture aims to protect vital interests while adapting to these constantly evolving challenges.
And as we've seen, every single decision about military posture in the Middle East has these ripple effects across the globe. It touches everything from geopolitical power balances right down to the price of oil. So here's a final thought for you, our listener. Given the dynamic and interconnected nature of these threats we've discussed, how do you think global powers should best balance their immediate, sometimes competing interest with the long-term goal of achieving genuine regional stability?